Good evening and welcome to the Azeroth Review. For anyone new here, hello. And this is just where we talk about anything World of Warcraft related. And every week we endeavour to behave ourselves and try and stick solely to World of Warcraft, or at least Warcraft, or at least Blizzard-based things. Get rid of that. And it's basically topics that you wish to discuss, whether it is the imminent release of the new raid, whether it is anything to do with the artifact stuff. We've got obviously the live Q&A coming up Thursday again. Obviously I imagine that's going to be, I've given up all hope that it's for answering questions now. I think it's just going to be explanatory about the content that's basically out this week. I suppose if you're in North America it is already out. If you're in Europe it is out tomorrow. And they've been talking about, of course, the artifact knowledge starts up again, and which is good because I could almost say I've done it in protest. I have not actually done any artifact building in the interim anyway. Hi Iron Templar, how may this evening? I'm sort of all right this evening, except the thing happened today that has never really happened quite as badly as this. So I got to the end of the day. It's the day when we have to stay back an extra hour at work, do stuff, you know. And I just saw, I mean, mostly my blinds are closed because who wants to look outside? And I just saw at the bottom of the blind, it wasn't completely closed, what looked like snow. And I thought, that's odd. There's no snow forecast. I thought it must be a trick of the light. So I opened up the window, well, not the window, but the blind, and thought, that's snow. That is snow and it's coming down. So I went into the staff room and basically said, was there supposed to be snow? Have I missed this? And they all went, what? And it was. And someone there said, oh, it's fine. It's quite light and it's not settling. Well, by the time I got away from there, it was settling. Still not, something that a Canadian or, someone from Sweden would laugh at. But we're not used to it here. Don't like it. Evening sky. So yeah, I'm hoping, it was still carrying on when I got home as well. I'm hoping it stops now. I don't look out the window. I really don't want to go outside tomorrow morning and find a load of bloody snow because I hate driving in the snow. I really hate it. It's always so dodgy as well. But anyway, yes, good evening. So what Warcraft level topics are we going to be on today? Whether it be lore, whether it be the reaping affix. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not even getting into Mythic Plus Dungeon at the moment. I might not even have to. You're from the Highlands. You see, if you're used to snow, never mind being all prim pop and going, oh, you can't cope, can you? No, we can't cope with extremes of weather where I am. England does not cope. We don't like it when it's hot. Well, some people like it when it's hot. They're all mad. But we can't cope when it's hot. Put it that way. We can't cope when it snows. We can't cope when it rains too much. We can't cope when it's too windy. We like a little bit of wind, a little bit of rain, tiny little bit of sunshine, and no snow and ice whatsoever. All right? I don't have winter tyres. I have the most bargain basement tyres there are. And, and that's it. And like I got to a roundabout, for example, a mini roundabout. Someone was to my right, so I had to stop. And the brakes, it was a bit icy there. So the old brakes did not work as well as I would have liked. You couldn't know exactly. You wouldn't handle snow in Central Florida. You can handle the heat at least. We can't handle anything. Any weather at all is bad. Basically, any weather, any form of weather. If it's too cold, your heating will break down. If it's too hot, we don't even have air conditioning. People who have air conditioning, that will break down. Or the window will get stuck or something like that. So no, we're absolutely hopeless when it comes to these things. Reminds me of the old curmudgeon in Hobbiton in Lord of the Rings. Well, exactly. But that's what Lord of the Rings is supposed to be. The Shire is supposed to be like England, isn't it, really? Is that why the English don't come to Scotland? Do the English not come to Scotland? I think we go to the Edinburgh Fringe. I've been to the Edinburgh Fringe a couple of times. That's all right. The only problem, though, is Edinburgh is basically built on a hill. So there's an awful lot of that old uphill walking. And downhill is only marginally better, quite frankly. I really don't know what that's count. UK knows how to deal with rains and climate. No, we don't. No. It's all right if it rains a bit. That's fine. In fact, that's good. That's all right. No issue there. The problem was last summer it didn't rain at all. And you started to see ancient settlements in the grass, in grassy areas. It was quite spectacular. You know, you could see the outlines of ancient fortifications deep under the ground because of the yellowing of the grass. But when it rains a lot, then we get floods. So, you know, so that's not good. And if it snows at all, we're snookered. Like, I know, for example, tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a load of students missing because those lazy arseholes will have taken one look out the window and gone, oh, it's snowing. Oh, there's no point in going into college tomorrow. The whole place will be a winter wonderland. We won't be able to get anywhere. The buses won't be running. What's the point? I might as well stay in bed. They'll have already made that decision based on one snowflake. And there's actually quite a lot of snowflakes. So, you know, pain in the arse. It's just as well. Tomorrow is my relatively light day. I get a lot of planning time. So I've only actually got 2 classes. But still, I want those 2 classes there. Have I a good evening? I'm having a good evening now. Yes, now that I'm back home and not in the snow. So that's all fine. But yes, we still haven't talked about anything to do with Warcraft. I'm going to have to pick a topic in a minute. But I don't know. What people want to talk about? All the item levels are getting shifted up, of course. I'm assuming people know about that. Artifacts are all changing again. They're going to keep changing all the way through the expansion, really. It's just for me. I mean, I'm just looking forward to you know, the new lore. That's what I want. 8.1.5. I want the news. I want the old god story. That's what I'm champing at the bit for. Forget about all this faction rubbish. It doesn't even make any sense. Although the only faction stuff that I will be looking forward to is finding out who is going to be the new war chief. Did I see the new cinematics? How new? I've seen some cinematics. How new are we actually talking here? Cinematics on what? Tell me which ones. The item level of the stuff from the Warfronts and everything's going up as well. How good would the new raid have been to bring it back into the game? Or no. See, I don't even like the idea. I mean, lots of people have said the fights are really good, which is, you know, good. But I don't like the idea of this raid, I have to say. But then that's maybe just me with my, what was a Mythic Raider head on. You know, the idea of having a different experience, even if you end up with roughly, well, there's 2 problems with it. One, different experience for Horde and Alliance. And that can easily make one version's path through it not so easy. The other thing, what I absolutely object to, is having my character change. I wasn't very happy in like old Hillsbrad, you know, when the Caverns of Time first came out. And I was human, so it was okay for my main character, but for Alts, you know, if it was a race that shouldn't have been there at the time, it just randomly changed you into something else. I didn't appreciate that. My character, as far as the game's transmog systems allow, it's very restrictive. But as far as those restrictions allow me to do so, I craft my character to look perfect. I don't want Blizzard monkeying about with it. Changing my race? No. No. Wowhead has the Alliance intro and Rastakhan. Oh, no, I haven't seen those then. No, in that case. Ooh. Ah. How have I missed those? No, I haven't then. But anyway. So, no. The idea of the raid I don't like. The individual fights may well be good. Like, people have said they're good. But the idea of it, not a fan. You don't like how the story so far is spaced out. When they pick up the story again, you already forgot where the story ended last time. I mean, I think that's in the nature of it. I think that would have always been the case, to be fair. I don't think there's a lot can be done about that. If you consume the content at a certain rate, you're obviously going to get through the story in a week or 2. And then, well, you know, there is quite a long time, you know, a few months before the next bit of story comes out, really. So I don't think there's a lot you can do about that in MMO, to be honest. The only thing you could do about it is put more of that content in, but that just creates more work for the developers. But then the people who don't consume it that quickly are left, they don't know what's going on ever. I mean, this is the reason, remember, why they brought in, I mean, first of all, in Wrath, they brought in the idea of 10 and 25 man mode, and then you had your hard mode things, just to try and increase engagement with the raids, because the raids always are the culmination of the storylines that the expansion is about. And then, of course, at the end of Cataclysm, they brought in LFR. Same sort of thing. It's like, okay, so we've brought out easier versions of it, but there's some people who still, you know, for whatever reason, aren't able to do that. There's LFR, because the raids have always been a key part, the ending of the story. You know, if you don't do the raids, it's like getting to the last chapter of a book and finding some arseholes nicked it. You know, they've ripped all the pages out. That can be what it's like. So that's why they did that, so that everyone can have a chance to go through the story. But yeah, you can't. They can't have story every. Well, I say that they have tried in Legion, didn't they, with Broken Shore? They tried spacing it out, didn't they? The content, time gating it, but they cocked it up. I mean, what happened was, I think ultimately the cock up came, not that it was a terrible idea to space it out, although I don't approve of it. I don't approve of time gating, but I understand why they do it. What happened was they realised that it was going to be quite boring. They were bringing out a patch, and what you could initially do was going to be a bit underwhelming. So then they front loaded it with all the exciting content, but then they realised that after a certain point, all they had left was the shit content, the boring, tedious stuff. And then it was like, you know, a new week, oh, we get this rubbish quest to do, and then that's it for the week. So it is a difficult one, and I have a bit of sympathy, but I'd much rather they allowed you to do everything when that patch comes out than say, right, you can do this bit this week, and then next week you can do this bit, and so on, because that just pisses people off as well. So I don't know that there's a good solution to it. I really don't know what they can do about that. I give them slack on that one. Although, that being said, I don't know that there has been as much. This is what worries me, actually. I don't think there's been as much to do story-wise in BFA as there was in Legion. So that also makes me wonder, because you always lead with your best stuff, surely. So that makes me think there isn't, I don't know that there is as much. But who knows? I mean, when the old god stuff all starts happening, maybe there'll be loads of stuff to do. But it's a difficult one to judge on, I think, at the moment. It could just be that I'm uninterested in the story at the moment as well. I'm not completely uninterested, but I'm much more looking for this. As far as I'm concerned, this is like the adverts and trailers before the film. You know, the film for me is the old god stuff. Hi, Doctor. You're just starting your 2-hour commute home now. Oh dear. The Legion's class hall was great for story and lore. Was it though? Was it? Because it does cause problems, the old class, the class halls. Because what's happened to them now? You know, here we were, existential threat, and all the order, and because the Alliance and the Horde weren't sorting themselves out, so we all individually formed these class order halls, or the class orders rather, and we banded together and worked together. Well, what's happening now? We're now at each other's throats again because of the faction war. So they haven't even updated that. I don't even know where we're supposed to be with that. And the second problem is strictly from a paladin point of view, because I was talking about, you know, quite a few people apparently were complaining about Zandalari paladins being a thing, and I was talking about that. And the point keeps coming up that, you know, people keep saying, and it's sort of right, they're sort of okay, that we shouldn't really think of the Horde races that are paladins as paladins. Like the Tauren paladins are really Sunwalkers, and the Zandalari paladins, they're still Zandalari paladins as far as I'm concerned. They were prelates, but that's not the case anymore. But the problem where that breaks down is that all those same races were in the Paladin class order hall with the Order of the Silver Hand emblems everywhere. So Tauren Paladins, it might be convenient to think of them as Sunwalkers, so you don't have to accept that Tauren Paladins are a thing. But the fact of the matter is that they were in the Order Hall. You know, the Silver Hand underneath Light's Hope Chapel. That does sort of mark them out as paladins. So I think the Order Halls messed up quite a lot of things in terms of lore. I didn't. I thought so anyway. They seem to spend a lot of effort on the story, which we do once. You prefer more replayable content, which isn't just World Quest. Yeah, I mean, obviously Blizzard would like that too. You know, they would love the idea of replayable content. You know, they've tried bringing a lot out, and like at the moment, obviously you've got Mythic Plus Dungeons, which is fantastic replayable content. Much improved from its first inception at the start of Legion. You know, because now you can actually keep going. When it first came out in Legion, you know, if you had a group and you had your keys and then you exhausted them all because you didn't make the timers, well, that was it. You had no keys anymore. If you were doing it as a group of 5, that you were done. Whereas now, and obviously this didn't arrive in BFA, this arrived during Legion, you can just keep going. You know, if you fail to meet it at a certain time, or your key doesn't go up, it goes down. But you've still got a key, and you can still keep doing it. You can do it for as long as you like. So that's actually good replayable content. Islands replayable content? I don't know it's that good. Really? I wouldn't say so. More fun with people. I think even with people you know, I don't think it's the sort of thing people would like to spend hours doing, if I'm honest. Warfronts, I suppose that becomes technically more replayable as we get onto the expansion. As more and more Warfronts come out, you'd be able to, if you wanted, you'd be able to spend quite a lot of time each week doing Warfront stuff, whether it's going to it into the scenario, or whether it's, you know, going to the world bit of it. Islands are terrible. Well, I think they're terrible. I think that's an opinion. I mean, the idea of them is not without merit, but equally, the idea of them does not allow you to find it enjoyable to do a ridiculous amount of them. I mean, I don't do any of them. So, is there any other replayable content for PvP? Obviously for PvP. PvP in any game is always going to be replayable, of course. Because the event there is being against other players, not against the world. They just need to relaunch the franchise, start from scratch, WoW 2. Well, this keeps cropping up, of course. If they were ever to... The thing is, though, if they were ever to do a World of Warcraft 2, there are certain things we don't know, and there are certain things we do know. And what we do know is that it would be designed primarily for either a console or, dare I say it, a mobile market. Excuse me, Gordon Bennett. Now, for a console market, it might just be moderately awful as an experience. Because I look to like Elder Scrolls Online. Obviously, I'm not saying that's an awful experience. It's a great experience. But there's certain aspects of the UI which are not... They're clearly not designed to be played on a PC. It's like they designed it for console and they couldn't be asked to modify it at all for PC. Excuse me. And I'm not talking about the combat systems. They're all fine. They work fine, actually. But just in terms of menus, it's just awkward. Like, for example, when I joined my first group playing Elder Scrolls Online, when I said goodbye to everyone, it took me fully 5 minutes to work out to leave the group. I could not work it out for ages. But yes, so we know that it would be designed primarily for the larger markets. And, you know, you'd hopefully get a PC version. But yeah, a PC version of a console game will always be better than a PC version of a mobile game, of course. You'd like a Mythic Plus that was not on time. The difficulty is nice, but the timer makes it stressful and less fun. Yeah, but it's... Well, you can treat it as if there's no timer. I mean, you don't have to stick to the timer. Like, you know, in my rubbish... Well, I don't even have a group anymore, but technically we sort of maybe do. Maybe at some point we'll do it again. You know, there's some times when we know we've got a key, we're not going to make it in time. We don't worry about it. You know? So, the timer is only there as a stress if you want to beat the time and get the higher key. If you don't stress about it. Obviously, the whole group needs to agree. It's no good one person being laid back about it and 4 of them stressing about it. But yeah, I would say I don't think the time's an issue because you can just ignore it if you don't want a higher key anyway. And also if you're not going to make the time anyway, you don't even need a higher key. It seems. Hold on, where am I? It seems to you that in WoD was the film tie-in. WoD was attempted to be the film tie-in, yes. Legion was from the Blizzard Old Guard as the final expansion BFA is the reset in the franchise. See, well, yeah, I sort of have that view. I mean, I keep saying it. You know, Legion basically eliminated the Burning Legion, as a threat to Azeroth. Didn't eliminate it, but eliminated it as a threat to Azeroth. And I think this is going to do the same to Old Gods. I think BFA is going to eliminate the Old Gods as a threat to Azeroth. And I absolutely believe that I wouldn't call it a reboot of the franchise. What I would call it is a massive change in direction of the storyline. That's how I would describe it. Hi, Mr. Scottish. You need to ban the word mobile. I'm afraid it's a thing. You know, denying facts doesn't stop those facts being a thing. You know, that's how we end up with certain referendum results. Phones are for calling people, not playing games. Well, do you know what I keep saying? Because obviously my students now they have all grown up with mobile phones. See, I remember when I first started teaching about, 20 years ago, maybe. About 20 years ago. Mobile phones, obviously they were a thing, but they weren't common. You didn't see kids with them that much. So they were just starting to become a thing. Only just starting. I'll tell you how sad it was in my first teaching job. Some kids made themselves little cardboard phones to pretend they have one. How sad. And it was only a few years later when all of a sudden they all had them. And now, of course, they've all got more and more expensive ones. And what I keep saying to my students, whenever a student tells me they forgot about a deadline, I say, look, you've got these bloody things. You've always on them. You're addicted. How come the one thing it's actually useful for, setting reminders for yourself, you don't actually use it for? So now what I do, when I set a deadline, I get my class to get their phones out. Well, they're already out. And I make them put a reminder in. So there. But yes, no, mobile. To be fair, now mobile smartphones have multiple uses. We have to embrace this. Unfortunately, gaming I don't see has been one of them. But Blizzard disagree. WoW 2 should never be a mobile game. No game should ever be a mobile game. I have infinite, I suppose, sympathy for people stuck at a train station for a few hours, and obviously they'd like to. If you want to play Tetris on it, knock yourself out. But a proper role-playing game? Really? That's what you want to do, stuck at a train station. Why don't I become guild master or set up a community for a chance to make the game more fun? I don't know that I'd be very good at that. Asmund, I mean, that's where sort of Asmongold comes into his own, that sort of thing. I don't think I'd be very effective at organising anything like that, if I'm honest. Because I don't even know what I would do. Like, you've got to bear in mind, I mean, my links with the game now are, the raiding's gone. It's gone. So my links with the game are largely on the storyline and just pottering about doing little events as they crop up, seasonal events, things like that. Be interested to see if the old gods wanted to build an empire to hold a bigger threat at bay. No, we know what they want. Where's it gone? I've lost it again. Here it is. This is the Bible for Warcraft, along with its 2 brothers. Okay, or 1 brother and 1 sister, sorry. Okay, that tells you everything, even though they've retconned their own first volume, but whatever. Not too badly so far. So we know what the old gods are for. Basically, it's like Empire Strikes Back, where the Empire throws out all those random droid probes, and one of them happens to land in Hoth, quite near, on the whole planet, quite near the rebel base. And the Chronicles could be lying. Well, they've staked their reputation on it. I mean, sort of, they already are. And So that's what they did with old gods. The void threw out old gods through space. Some of them smacked into worlds. If it happened to contain a world soul, great, we'll corrupt it. And apparently, for reasons best left undiscussed, I think, all the void has to do is corrupt a single titan. And that would wipe out the universe. Never mind that a full pantheon of titans couldn't even work out how to kill an old god. At least not without harming the planet it was on. But apparently one corrupted titan can destroy the entire universe. For no adequately explored reason. What if there's only 2 rated like WoD? No, they've already said it's like it follows the pattern of Legion. So no. It's 8.2 is obviously Ashara. 8.3 Unzoth. It is Unzoth, I'm telling you. It's the Bible until they change their mind. Yeah, but they look where I'm gonna have to read from it now. Do I think that he could pass a law banning loot boxes? Yes, I do. I'm not sure it's super high priority at the moment, but it has been. I think it's been mentioned by a few member states. I absolutely think they could do that. Right, hold on. God, waffle. Is anyone going to say anything useful here? Chris Metzen, what's he said about it? I want to. There is a bit in here where it says we want to lay it all down. Pain in the ass. Someone said it. Someone said that this is where we're laying it down, setting it in stone. But I can't find it now. You carry on. I'll find it. It will be here. 20 years of storytelling, tens of thousands of moments, characters, races and monsters, all forming dense strata of concepts and ideas over time. This book, which I know what they're trying to say. They're trying to say so many people have worked on it and there's all these stories and it's so dense. We now need to make sense of it. I don't buy that. That's because they never really had anyone looking after it. You know, the Warcraft lore is not as detailed as Tolkien's lore, Middle-earth lore. And yet, his was worked out. I need post-it notes. I don't like post-it notes. I had a student ask me for a post-it note the other day. And I said, I'm not even sure I've got any. Because I don't use them. I don't like them. Writing this was an opportunity to unite the frayed story ends and smooth out the rough edges of this fictional history. Ultimately, this grand and super nerdy editorial undertaking gives us an amazing perspective on Warcraft's recurring themes and conflicts, how societies often clash before seeing a common humanity in each other, how earnest, well-intentioned heroes can often succumb to temptations of power, how failing to take responsibility for mistakes of the past can lead to calamity in the present. There was a more positive statement, but I don't know. I'll find it somewhere. But yes. Anyway, you need post-it notes for the interesting pages. They're all, to be fair, they are all interesting pages. You know, the Warcraft Chronicles is like the best thing they've written in the last 5 years. But, you know, it's just... And I suspect even the bits there haven't... It's like, there's things in there that I'm reading in there that I know they've probably toned down a bit because they know they're going to reveal something, but it's not revealed. Obviously, it has to be revealed in the game first. So when I read through the Chronicles, sometimes something isn't as clear as I might like. Like, for example, as I was talking recently at the weekend about old gods Yogg-Saron and Cthulhu. Initially, when we defeated them, that's all we did. And Blizzard said so. It's like, you have only defeated them, you have not killed them. Whereas now, especially with when you're looking at stuff from 8.1.5, you're really thinking, oh, we have killed them. And people have been wondering that for a couple of years now, based on the way things have gone. But if you look in the Chronicles, it's ambiguous. It doesn't say we've killed them. It doesn't say we've not. So you could actually have it both ways round and the Chronicles still makes sense. So, but I am now convinced that we have, and that is why Unzoth is the only one left, which is also why, you know, we have, we'll finish him off, and then that'll be that. You doubt the old gods would really care about what the Void Lords want. The old gods are the creations of the Void Lords. They absolutely care what they want. as they can't exist in the physical world without becoming weaker. Well, yeah. I mean, they can't manifest in the physical world for long, I think is the way it's described. So they can only do it for a little bit. But that being said, they're still obeying the will of they are creatures of shadow. Now, obviously, they don't work cooperatively. This is true. They are very competitive. But that doesn't matter. They're still doing their job as far as the Void is concerned. Is the fact the EU is thinking of banning loot boxes a driving force behind all these gaming companies, EA and Activision stock taking such a hit lately? I don't think so, because there aren't any imminent proposals. You know, a few countries have expressed concerns. It's the sort of thing that at some point you would think the EU will take an active interest in, but I don't think it's in their in tray yet, if I'm honest. I think it's just a few member states have sort of publicly said this isn't good. And it's not that it would ban loot boxes, it's the system of it. This idea of persuading you to spend money on something that is effectively a loot box is gambling. If you've spent money on it, that can obviously seriously affect someone who has gambling inclinations, you know, because you're going to spend more money. You know, some of these games you can spend hundreds of pounds without even thinking about it easily. And the other problem with it is it is so easy. We have a modern problem in terms of paying for anything, because what you used to have to do credit cards were a thing, but they weren't commonly. When you were a kid, you didn't have a credit card, and you had money, you had notes. So when you were paying for something expensive, you were having to hand over high denomination notes, and so there's something in your brain that's saying, bloody hell, this is a lot of money here. Are you sure about this? So there's a bit of caution naturally in a system with money. Whereas when it's electronic, it's the same number of buttons that you press to spend £1,000 as it is £5. And that's ultimately the problem. Like when I go and if I want to buy some online currency in a game, like ESO again, it's the same basic button, bar one in terms of the options, but everything else is the same process for me to buy the cheapest one or the most expensive one. It's no difference between literally spending £5 and £100 or £1,000 or anything like that. Because you're created by something's will doesn't mean you would follow it. Just look at teenagers. Well, we could just say just look at the Lich King, because he didn't fancy following the will of the Legion. But that being said, the old gods are doing what the Void want them to do. They are corrupting Azeroth. That's what they want them to do. How they do it is up to them. Just use the parental controls to turn off the store option. Problem solved for WoW. It's not solved for WoW, because what about the parents? Not everyone who plays WoW and would be in danger. Like, it's not kids that are the danger here, because the kids don't have the credit cards or the debit cards or whatever is on there, or PayPal. You know, it's the adults. It's the ones who have an income, but maybe don't have enough slack in that income to spend silly money on things like this. So that's your issue. And then, you know, you get a situation where you're thinking, bloody hell, where's all my money gone? Oh, yeah, I spent it on pixels. Shit. So, no, it is a serious issue, and it's one that should be taken seriously. And I think it's one that government should take seriously. Because you're never going to expect the industry... Because usually what happens is, when legislation is planned for something, they usually give industry one last chance, and they say, look, come up with an industry-wide code of conduct. It's not legally binding, but do it, and if everyone follows it, we won't legislate. But something like this, someone's going to take the piss. And there's no point in trying to argue the toss about whether they've broken the code or not. Just make it illegal, and then it's for the courts to decide. The adults that have not grown up with physical money. Well, there will be now. I mean, all right, physical money is still a thing, but it's much less common. In fact, I was watching on the news recently, there's a pub in London now that doesn't even accept cash. It doesn't accept cash. You pay electronically or go and find another pub. Not that that would be difficult in London. And And the reason for this, they said, is first of all, they noticed that most customers were paying electronically anyway. And also that it was man hours on their part to deal with the money. Because obviously someone's got to count it all up, put it in bags and take it to the bank. And that's, time being taken out of a worker's day or therefore costing the company. So they've changed now. They've just said, you know what, you're paying electronically or not at all. So, You're 21 using to control yourself. Well, yeah, but not everyone does. People with a gambling problem tend not to. Some do, but tend not to. Anyway, where are we? Why is the US always so far behind the EU in protecting their citizens from bad business practices? Because you have a totally different system in the US. You don't really have anyone looking out for the consumer. I think the only reason there are consumer rights in the US, if I'm going to be honest, my observation this is, it's not a fact, I've not done a survey or anything, but my observation of Americans is they tend to be quite demanding as customers. So if a product's not quite right, then they kick up a fuss. But politicians don't seem to really have their backs. Like, for example, there's all sorts of examples like this, aren't there? Car dealerships is a classic example in the US, where car dealerships have territories, and you're not allowed to have a car dealership where there's another in the territory of another one. So you're limiting of a particular type at any rate. The idea of, for example, being able to order a car online and save a load of money doesn't exist in the US, does it? Most people don't do it in this country, but you can. But yeah, I just think it's that there is no system set up to look after the consumer in America. If you gave the go-ahead for WoW 2, what would be my plan? Initial launch storyline. So my initial launch story, well, the final act of World of Warcraft, I would say, would be Azeroth waking up. Now, I don't know where my starting point for WoW 2 would be. Because, first of all, what I initially thought was maybe we'd all have to evacuate Azeroth and go somewhere else. The problem is, why on earth would the Alliance and the Horde go to the same place? That doesn't make sense. Because that's just asking for trouble. We're going to go to another world. Should we go to the same world as our mortal enemies? Yeah, that's a good idea. So no, that won't happen. So I guess we'll have to accept that Azeroth will still exist as a world when Azeroth herself has woken up. So what I would think of as a storyline for WoW 2 is basically building up the Army of the Light, obviously very slowly. So you'd still have your Alliance and Horde frictions, but you'd be in a world where there's no existential threat to your world anymore because it no longer has a world soul in it. But you just have, general fights with demons and the undead and void things. A different baddie every expansion. That could work. It doesn't always have to be. Like World of Warcraft ended up getting itself into a situation where it was always about huge cosmic forces. It doesn't always have to be about that. Other MMOs don't do it like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's not necessary. Anyway, paper money. It's not paper anymore. It's plastic now. But paper money will be gone some years. Of course, it'll be gone. At some point, it will be gone. There'll be no point in having cash at some point. The ideal of philosophies such as liberalism or... Yes, yeah. Although, the thing is, people keep... Yeah, I particularly notice when... I find it particularly funny when you get... Sometimes you get American-like politicians or whatever, and they attack people for being liberal at the same time as arguing for liberal policies. I don't think a lot of people actually understand what liberalism is. I think people just think being a liberal means, being, I don't know, like just being a moderate. That's not what it means. Liberalism is actually fairly right-wing. It's not hugely right-wing. It's a little bit. Like the Democrats are a liberal party, but they're like the Conservatives in the UK. So in America, they're considered as being on the left, but they're not. They're on the right. But in this country, that's our right-wing party. But anyway, who was it who said, give me control of a nation's money supply and I care not who makes its laws? I don't know, but I don't think I've even heard that one, actually. But anyway. Anyway, let's get back into Warcraft. I keep doing this. You're incorrigible, you lot. You know I talk about politics at the drop of a hat. The Army of the Light are rather fascist and exterminate heretics. Well, so the way I've described it now recently is the Army... Well, the Light itself, let's say, as a force, first of all, is clearly now not benevolent. It has its own agenda. That being said, its default position is to be kind, unlike the Void. So its default position is to be kind. However, if you're standing in its way, it will barge you out of the way. So therefore, yes, you could argue the Army of the Light is... It's difficult to argue against the idea that it might be deceived at the very least. Like, I mean, this came very clearly from Turalyon, didn't it? You know that scene in the nice part of Argus where you're walking with Turalyon and Velen, and Velen has to sort of explain to Turalyon that Zira hasn't really told you everything. Because although Velen is also a follower of the Light, he's not blind to the fact that they sometimes have done dodgy things. But it's just that before Legion, as far as we were concerned, the Light had never done anything dodgy. It had always been nice. And then all this was basically made up in Legion. So again, clear change of direction for those cosmic forces too. Anyway. Seem to think socialism is free healthcare. But yeah, this is the thing. All right, you've done it to me again. Just quickly. Why do Americans... I mean, first of all, there is no such thing as free healthcare. Healthcare isn't free in the UK. It's just you don't pay for it at point of contact. You pay for it through your life. Okay? So therefore, that means you don't have to worry about the costs of treatment. Okay? Now, why do people have this idea in one country in the entire world? There's only one country, as far as I know, that has this attitude. Why do people have the attitude that someone being able to access healthcare, regardless of their means, is a bad thing? I don't understand that. I've never got it. Macari, yes. It was Macri. Or was it Macri? I can't. But yeah, that's the zone I'm thinking of. The nice one. Hi, Eraser. Happy Tuesday to you too. Except I always reserve that epithet for Fridays. What are my thoughts on the Mecha Talk fight in the new raid? And am I planning to do the raid at some point? Well, here's the thing. The opportunity to beat up a gnome cannot be missed. But at the same time, I don't do raids, so I'd have to just do it on LFR. I haven't even finished Uldir on LFR. I haven't finished Uldir on any mode. I haven't done Gahoon on any mode. But yes, I cannot completely miss out on opportunity to beat up a gnome. Obviously. Duh. So there you go. I should do a video on what I think the many factions would lean towards politically. Either Timbermoors or a socialist commune. They're just hippies. I don't think they're socialists, really. They're just hippies. The word commune suggests that anyway. The Horde is kind of fascist. I don't know that the Horde is fascist. I would describe it as militaristic. It's not... I don't think fascist is fair. Because it has... For it to be fascist, I think it would have to treat different people in different ways. And to be fair, you know, it has... Well, at the moment it's been strained, obviously, with the... I mean, it has in the past, I suppose. But that's usually when you get a war chief who goes bad. But generally speaking, the Horde has been, you know... It hasn't, like, looked down on people within the Horde as second-class citizens, which I think is one of the key things of a fascist state. What do I think the next class will be for WoW? Well, I mean, people say Necromancer. It could be. You know, we did have... The problem is, we did have Necromancers in Warcraft. However, if you look at it carefully, what would the Necromancer be but a combination of Warlock and Death Knight? And if they did announce the Necromancer class, I know exactly what would happen. All the Warlocks, who were already not happy sacrificing some of their abilities to Death Knights, will be looking at it and thinking, don't you dare take any more of my abilities, but you know they will. But it has to be a ranged class. Must be a ranged class. I would prefer it if there were no new classes. There are already too many. From a raiding point of view, obviously I don't raid anymore. I don't really believe I'm going to be able to either in anything like the next few years. But if, from a raiding point of view, there are already too many classes. So to have even more is lunacy. Absolute lunacy. Necromancer if the next one is the Lich King. The next expansion could well be Lich King based. Like undead based. What do I think the next class will be for... Oh, sorry, I've answered that. What am I talking about? Libertarians want little to no state intervention. Yeah, well, so what liberalism basically is... First of all, it's all about free trade and like freedom of speech, for example. Like, I'm not a liberal because I think that with freedom should come responsibility. But liberalism doesn't really focus that much on the responsibility. It does, however, want the state to protect people, but no more. So it's relatively light government, just enough to protect people from those who would do them harm. That's why American culture is fairly liberal. You know, I mean, there are some, you know, in the UK as well, but you know. But, you know, I think responsibilities go with freedoms, personally. So that means that I don't really subscribe to liberal views. That's me. Putting anything in the control of the government causes it to be inefficient and wasteful. No, that's not necessarily true. It's only mostly true. Would it be better for Blizzard to add range specs to existing classes? Yes, we were talking about just this when we were talking about it. Oh, it's probably when I was streaming some Star Wars stuff. Yes, absolutely. You know, give range and melee classes, but mostly range classes. Make sure every class has a range spec. And it's not like they'd have to develop it either. Like we were saying before, we've said it in the Azeroth review before a few months ago. Paladins could have a Shadow Priest spec, exactly the same as a Shadow Priest, only, obviously, wherever it's purple, make it gold, and wherever it says Shadow, call it light. You know, just change the names of the abilities and the animations. Keep the actual gameplay the same. Perfect. Perfect solution. And if priests complain about that, which they would, then give them a melee spec. You know, what I said was, what could you change them to? I can't remember what I said. Oh, yeah, Survival Hunter. That's what I said. So they can use their staff, and if they want to use the harpoon, the thing that draws them in, they could do like a tether of light, pull them in. You know, you could absolutely have a priest going in and smacking the shit out of things with their stick. Absolutely. So it would be an easy thing to do, and I think they should do it. Might be bad for the game, but Blizzard needs to hock people in. New classes and races are strong tools. Pretty sure they'll use them. New races I'd be absolutely fine with. You know, there is no harm. Well, obviously the racials cause harm. But in general, there is no harm with increasing the number of new races. But I have said it before and I will say it again. If they want to get more people in the game and they want to retain more people, player housing and get rid of the stupid restrictions on transmog. They will gain 1 million subscribers almost overnight, over the course of 6 months at least. Easy. You will never get away from politics. I never will get away from politics because you know something? My political channel is outperforming this channel by a mile. If I'd have known years ago, all I have to do is make a channel where I talk shit about politics, then I would have done it years ago. But anyway, never mind. Warrior range can have a machine gun. No. Warrior ranged, throwing axes. You know, like something in. Is there something in Diablo 3 that does that with the axes? There is something. And rogues could be like the or demon hunters. One of the two could be like the demon hunter in Diablo 3 with the dual crossbows, like a Van Helsing thing going on. So many like styles of range class you could put in, but don't create a new class. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Put them onto the classes that already exist. So you hope everyone's enjoying the new patch. Well, only so many people will because it's not out in Europe yet. It comes out tomorrow. Is there a link for the other channel? No. YouTube doesn't seem very good at that. It's called a different bias. But YouTube is not that good at... Ooh, shit. At doing a thing, basically. You know, you can't go to someone's channel, basically. As far as I know, I can't see any way to do it. And say, oh, they seem to have other channels. I will click those. But anyway. About that, how come I use my name on the political videos but not on the WoW videos? Because it would be ridiculous for me to use a code name. Oh, it's not a code name, it's a character name. Because this is a role-playing channel. And I'm not role-playing my character. But people know me in the game as the thing, don't they? So that's just why. I don't mind people using my real name. But that's just how that came about. And also everyone else does that. I just conformed to what everyone else did anyway. On the actual channel, it makes no sense to make up a new name for. Apart from anything else, if you're going to try and say that you're telling the truth, you don't really want to be using pseudonyms, do you? Player housing does not work. They did not try player housing. Behave yourself. They did not. They have never once come anywhere close to trying player housing. Just because they used the technology that could be used for player housing for a thing didn't make it player housing. Right? I mean, it's... You got a lot of amusement from the comments in the channel. Oh, the comments. They're fun. They are fun. Yeah, you get loads of... See, that's the thing. Yeah, talk about politics. Everyone wants to have a say. Get shitloads of comments as well. But anyway, I actually can't compare, though, comments on that channel with this channel. Because if I look at the comments on this channel, it tells me there's actually more than the other channel. But it's every time you say something, it's counting it as a comment. So it counts comments when people say something on a live stream. Not quite the same thing. But anyway. Player housing could rejuvenate professions. It could rejuvenate the game. There are so many. It's banging my head against the wall. I cannot understand how it's not possible for Blizzard to get this in their heads. There's only so many players that are that motivated by power gear, because power gear is useless to almost everyone. I accept that there are some people who are motivated by power gear that don't even need it. I get that. But that, again, is a small number. Most players are motivated by developing their character. That can... And they make no... In my case, now that I'm casual, I would make no distinction between power upgrades and cosmetic in theory, but in practice, I would favour cosmetic upgrades, because if I go and do some content to get cosmetic rewards, then I know that those cosmetic rewards are still going to be there in a year's time. If I go and do some content for power upgrades, they are going to be worthless in a year's time. Fit only for transmog, if that. What's holding this MMO together after stripping the game down so much? I think it's only the players that have played it for so long. I honestly think that now. I'm not saying it's a terrible game. What I am saying is, first of all, I no longer believe that it has more players than any other MMO. I think now, obviously I can't know how many players WoW has, but it is now entirely possible that Elder Scrolls Online has more active players than World of Warcraft. So I think it may have lost its top spot crown. And I think that has been achieved, if that's the right word, which I know it's not, during BFA. So there you go. See, having customizable order halls, surely what you're really talking you want is a customizable guild hall. You know, so many options you could do for guild halls. It'd be so amazing. There was a portal hidden behind a gate in Stormwind. Yeah, that was meant to be. Yes, oh yeah, they kept saying they intended to put player housing in the game. For ages they promised it would be a thing. And then eventually they just stopped promising. And then a few years later, when everyone said, what happened to player housing? They went, oh, we don't want it, it's crap. They've never put any serious effort into it. But yeah, in terms of what's holding the MMO together, if this game came out in its current state as a brand new game, it wouldn't be disastrous, but it wouldn't be good. It really wouldn't be good. I think what's keeping it together now, and I'm not saying there are no new players coming and enjoying themselves. Of course there are. But I think by and large, you're talking about people who've had a character for years, 10 years, maybe more, in the game. A lot of time invested in it. And as I say, if you want to go off and play another game, that's okay. But if you want to go off and play another MMO, it's very difficult. Because ultimately, when you play an MMO, once you've played MMOs before, what you know is you want to level up and then see what the end game has to offer. It takes a lot of time and effort to actually find out if you're going to enjoy an MMO. What am I doing with my hair? As much as this one. Gordon Bennett, get out of the way. So, I don't know. It is in trouble. I do think the game is in serious trouble. You've only been subbed for 2 months since BFA launched. Don't even have the usual WoW pull to bring me back. I think there is less content in terms of quantity. I don't want to say anything about quality, although I've got my ideas on that. I think there is less content in terms of quantity than there was during Legion. Did you watch the video by Mash, Why World of Warcraft is Garbage, an essay? No, I have seen it flash up though, but no, I haven't watched it. Maybe I should watch that. It does keep flashing up, so maybe one day I will just click on it. I mean, I've got my own ideas about that. You want a new development team, maybe a fresh perspective. It doesn't need a whole new development team. It needs new senior developers. That's what it needs. But it may be too late now. Because like people kept saying, oh, Activision, like ruining it, all the rest of it. No, Activision were not interfering. If Activision had interfered, we'd know about it because Blizzard would have put loot boxes in the game. The fact, because that's what, if you think about it, what are people's objections to Activision? Loot boxes. That's the main thing that people have a beef with Activision. So given that that's not in World of Warcraft, that means they haven't really been getting their way. But I think they may now. I'm not saying loot boxes are coming to WoW, but I do think there is now interference. I don't think Blizzard are now commanders of their own ship. So I think it's too late. I think the current crop of senior designers has basically wrecked for the future the people who will come through, because they are probably the last set of senior developers that has had the freedom to do not quite what they want with the game, but, that has had freedom to have their own ideas and implement them. WoW doesn't create social connections anymore. It used to be excellent at it. Made so many friends in WoW back in the day. Haven't made a single friend in WoW, WoW, Legion or BFA. I think, though, that's just the way MMOs have gone, to be honest. I don't think it's necessarily any different in any MMO now. Unless it tries to hark back to old-style MMO. But the bottom line is that a lot of people don't like that. Have I played Black Desert Online? Yeah, I played Black Desert Online as soon as it came over to Europe. The housing, this is the thing. WoW is the only MMO I play that doesn't have housing. It's the only one. Can I watch the video on stream? No, I'm not. I will watch it, though. I'll watch it then. Because the thing is, I am actually at the moment writing some notes on a video which is supposed to be entitled The Biggest Mistakes Blizzard Have Made. So it's obviously not going to be a complimentary one. So maybe I'll read it then, just in case something occurs to me. But it does baffle me, good evening, Shane, that they don't get this in their heads. But I just worry now that it is too late. All the new MMOs are creating games around that, such as Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. And if WoW doesn't correct its failures, it'll probably steal the player base. I think these things, I don't know about steal the player base, because I don't believe for one moment that everyone that quit WoW a few months ago, and I think would be fairly certain that it was an awful lot of people, just because of the way Blizzard reacted. I don't believe for a moment they just all switched to another MMO straight away. I think they just stopped playing. And I think that's even worse. Like, if you go and play another game because it looks better, you know, that's all right. Blizzard aren't going to like that, but they might come back because it might not be better. How? Do you know what? Let's think about the MMOs that I have played since playing World of Warcraft. When I've played it when it's launched, I played Age of Conan when it first launched. I played Lord of the Rings Online when it was relatively newly launched, not completely new. I played Star Wars: The Old Republic in the beta, but not when it launched, but in the beta. Warhammer Online when it first launched. Elder Scrolls Online when it first launched. Black Desert Online when it first launched in Europe. Every one of those games, when I went into them, in the general comments, you would not have to wait very long before people started comparing it to World of Warcraft. So you could tell that the players playing this game were basically World of Warcraft players who desperately wanted a better game. And you also know that a lot of those people probably wouldn't find it and would go back. Some of them wouldn't have done, some would have stayed. But anyway. Just start streaming on YouTube more and watch other people's videos and make comments. No, I'm not doing that. No. Oh, I did play Dungeons and Dragons online, but I'm not going to use that as an example because I literally played it for 1 hour and said, I've had enough of this. I could not get into it. You know, an hour sounds a ridiculous amount of time to spend on, but I really couldn't. I couldn't get it. Sorry, I'm missing shitloads of comments. Right. Anyway, but no, I'm not watching things on stream. I think that's just cheeky. That's not content. You like Balula? I used to love Balula when he stuck to doing what he's good at. But then, and it's not so much that he tried doing things that he wasn't good at. It was specifically that he ripped off other people. At that point, I don't even care if he stopped doing it. You know, I'll never find out because I don't watch any of his stuff anymore just because of that. You know, I think that's pretty disgusting. Especially as it's not like someone in my position that might be desperate for views and, oh, yeah, let's just watch someone's video and then rehash it and do my own version. He's, you know, he was successful in his own right, doing what he's really good at that no one else actually in WoW YouTube does. And there was no need for it. Anyway, you have a raid tonight and 650 Titan Residium. I've got next to nothing. Do I think you should just buy 3 pieces of 385 gear with the 2 traits in order to push heroic tonight? No. No, I think it's better to save it. You're asking to be lucky. Never put yourself in a situation where you need to be lucky to win. Try, you know, go for guaranteed if you have the option. When you quit WoW, you stopped MMOs altogether. Nostalgia from WoW sank my enjoyment of other MMOs. Oh, that's sad. But is that because then what you enjoyed was that very first experience, which you will never get again? Because I had the same. Obviously, my experience of World of Warcraft, there were things there that can never be replicated. Classic WoW coming out will remind me of them, but it will not give me that same feeling. Playing an MMO for the very first time will never give me that same feeling because I am now familiar with MMOs. There's certain things I look for. You know, when I first started playing World of Warcraft and I created my character, I was exploring straight away. When I first play an MMO now, or any game in fact, the first thing I do is I go in all my options and I try and adjust options, keybinds, all the rest of it. I'm not as desperate to get into it because I want to make sure that it's all set up right. What do you mean ripped off? You're not familiar with him? He basically ripped off someone's guides, class guides, which he shouldn't be doing because he's not an expert on any class. He shouldn't be doing those. But he's not an expert, and that's why he ripped them off. Because I know one of the people that he ripped off, and they were not happy either. Anyway. People don't want a rehash, they want new experiences, and WoW no longer provides that. BFA, basically colourful Legion. It could be argued, yes, it could well be argued that. I'm hoping that the Old God story will shake it up, though. You think Classic will take over retail? I really don't. I can believe there might be an initial massive amount of hype over it, but I think it will settle down. I seriously do not believe that it would exceed that. I believe that there's a lot of people who will like it. But remember, I don't think it's going to attract the full potential of people who want a classic WoW, because you've got to bear in mind an awful lot of them, because it's not classic WoW and never could be, will still complain. Classic will be played by old farts like me. Well, the ones who will continue playing it, I believe so, yeah. People, I don't understand. I can accept there'll be a few people like this, but there won't be that many people who did not play it at the time playing it. After a while, anyway. Obviously, you know, it's not costing. If you've got a retail account, it's not costing you anything extra. But see, people are going to try it out anyway, but they're going to get well pissed off with it. You suspect you'll play more classic than he lets on. Sounds like it was a very good playing classic content. Yeah, I was, but I'm not going to do that again. I've done it. Why would I need to do it again? No need. Also, it'll be a very different experience. Like someone said recently on a comment on my video, they said, oh, just wait till people start asking for gear score. And then someone said, no one would do that. They might, you know. Because if you get a load of people playing classic WoW who did not play it in vanilla and have just played since, especially since Wrath, they may well try and do some sort of gear. I see no reason why a gear score add-on couldn't be created. So, you know. But no, I won't be playing it lots. I'll potter around. I miss the old zones. I miss the old style of quests. I miss a lot of things from it. I miss Scholarmance. I will want to do Scholarmance. That's my favourite dungeon ever. So disappointed when they removed that. But it will be a long time. I'm not going to like put my... Although, I'm a teacher. I do get 6 weeks off over summer. But I would feel it's a wasted summer if I spent all that time playing Classic WoW. Anyway. You're going to be coming back to Classic though whether or not you'll stick around is another matter. I mean, I'll sort of... I'm like, preach just more eloquent. Oh, don't take the mess out of him just because he's from Manchester. You loved hearing my stories regarding PR. Oh, yeah. Project Retard. That was a corker. Oh, there were good times in Classic. There's no denying it. It was cracking times. But, and if I'm honest, if I was to identify any like version of WoW that was my most fun time, of course it was vanilla. But it's not going to... It's gone. It's done. That part of it is history. You can't relive it just by putting it on again. You know, I suppose it's like, you know, it's like watching Memento, isn't it? Cracking film, absolutely amazing, but it's not as good the second time round. That's just how it is. I don't even watch that film anymore unless I'm watching it with someone who hasn't watched it. Then it becomes enjoyable again. Majority of people who move to Classic will be back in a month or two. Well, they don't have to go anywhere. It's the same account, isn't it? If you already have a retail account, it will just pop up for nothing extra. They'll, you know... I think it's potentially a good thing for when you've got mini content droughts between patches, though. People can go to Classic WoW. You know, it'll serve a really good purpose. Server stability alone will make a huge difference. The Ironforge lag pits will no longer be a thing. Absolutely. An absolutely massive difference. The fact that there'll be far more guides now. People won't have to be making it up. Not that they'll be hugely complex, but you know. Hang on. Take my laptop outside. I hope that's not an What's? I'm not going outside. Why would I go outside? Who's talking about going outside and playing games? You've never seen Memento? Oh, you've got to watch Memento. But what you've got to do, right? You've got to make sure you'll be undisturbed. You've got to watch it from beginning to end and not miss a second, or you'll ruin the whole thing. It's very clever. Superb film. You've got to watch Memento. It's like one of the best films. But you only get one shot at it. So you have to make sure you're not going to have any interruptions, nothing disturbing you, and watch it. Don't have anything else to do at the same time. Don't be eating. Don't have anything that will distract you. Watch it. BC servers would be incredible. What would BC servers give you, really? Like, you know, the classes were different. But the classes were... All right, they started to try and be serious about giving each spec a use, great. But they didn't do it very well to begin with. I don't blame them for that. It takes time. I don't see what the benefit, because all the quests are still there. The content's still there. They haven't pissed about with that. It's one of the few things they haven't pissed about with. So, I don't know. Although, I mean, it's just my opinion. Obviously, there are people who would like Burning Crusade servers, but I don't really see what you'd get from it, if I'm honest. But class design, no, it was dreadful. It just wasn't as dreadful as vanilla, that's all. Dreadful. The private server scene seems to have developed a taste for racing the same content over and over again, so there's some replayability there. Well, I mean, that's fine for people who like that. A lot of people don't like that, though. I mean, I'm not. I play Baldur's Gate every couple of years, so I'm all right. But, you know, there'll be a lot of people that want some, you know, once they've played it, they've played it. Will Classic have gold sellers everywhere like in 2006? I don't know. Because obviously their systems are better now at trying to deal with it. But ultimately, the thing that really, I think, killed them off was the WoW token. Now, obviously, they daren't have the WoW token in Classic WoW. So, as to gold sellers, I honestly don't know. It could be that they become an issue. But that being said, you know, modern technology might help a bit with that regard. Better class design vanilla is great, but the classes are horrid in vanilla. They were horrid. The best thing you could probably play in vanilla, it's mind-numbingly boring, but it's probably the best thing to do, is just play a Frost Mage, quite frankly. Vanilla Rep Pally at level 40 with full spell power cloth kit. What's wrong with you? Don't be ridiculous and not wearing cloth. You've got no pride. You think people talk about the negatives all the new third-party materials will provide instead of the positives? Oh. You did vanilla and TBC in their day. You'll enjoy the nostalgia but can't recreate the joy of... Well, that's it for me. You know, the things I did, they were new. I experienced things for the first time. And I still remember them. I've not quite gone senile. I do occasionally have the odd senior moment now, but it's not that bad. I can still remember. And not only can I still remember the events, I can still remember many of the feelings. Like, I can remember what it was like downing, say, Nefarian for the first time. That was a spectacular feeling. That is the only time in my life when I have properly got excited felling a boss, because every other raid boss I've killed since, I've always felt that maybe we could have killed it a bit quicker. You know, the ones in TBC were generally pretty good. I was generally with decent guilds in TBC, so we didn't like spend lots of extra, but we always sort of felt maybe we could have killed it a week earlier. Nefarian came out of the blue. No one believed we were going to kill Nefarian on the night we did. You know, we just still treated it as progress, and then we killed it. It's amazing. Anyway, let's have a look. Only reason you'll be playing Classic is to relive the memories. Classic for you brings back exploration of real world again. Leveling is the majority of the game in Classic for you. See, I enjoyed an awful lot of things in it. I even spent a few weeks in summer doing PvP to get the Knight Captain title. That's all I wanted, the title. Didn't care about anything else. Vanilla Frost Mage PvP was amazing. Well, Vanilla Frost Mage could do anything. It was dull. But, you know, it was effective. One thing you're not looking forward to is Old Sunken Temple. Well, I don't know. The trolls is a bit tedious. The troll bosses. But the rest of it's fun. You just have to be careful not to get tail swiped into the hole. Basically, that's the only time you can go wrong. Oh! Do you know what? I would love to watch a completely vanilla virgin group do Upper Blackrock Spire. Do you know, where you go through the eggs and the rookery, whatever it's called, and to deal with like the mobs in the next room, You had to all jam yourself up against the wall, tank pull stuff out, because they would knock you back. The orcs and stuff like that would knock you back. And if you weren't pressed tight up against that wall, instead of getting knocked into the wall, you get knocked straight into the well pegs, and then that'd be that. Oh, I'd love to watch that. That would be spectacular. The game went downhill because of the reward structure. They brought participation trophies into the game and Titan Forging. People no longer care about the gear they used to. I don't. Well, no, I don't think they care about the gear. Which is why, as I say, they should have more cosmetic-based rewards in the game. I think another part of it was in vanilla. Excuse me. In vanilla, let's say you did tier 1 and you got your tier 1 raid gear. And then let's say you stopped playing the game. And then you came back a year later. It's still vanilla. You've come back a year later. You're still in your tier 1 raid gear. Now, compared to other raiders, you're in shit gear. But compared to most people out and about, you're still in really good gear. Whereas now, I mean, it's not even now. This is something that happened quite late on. Like, all right, take Wrath of the Lich King, which is only 2 expansions later. Because I did exactly this. I had the best gear in the game just before Ulduar came out. I'd quit the game. Okay? I came back on a very casual basis at some point during Lich King, ICC. And my gear was horse shit. Absolute shit. Couldn't even get into a pug with it. Not even get into a pug with it. And that's the same now. But that's not something that's recent. That happened. It's worse now. But it's something that existed ages ago. Old Sunken Temple for the best. And the dragon summoning sword still your favourite weapon in the game. I like the trinket, though. Because there weren't many trinkets, you know, to get. It was not easy to get decent trinkets. So that was a good source of trinkets. Vanilla Frost Mage with engineering was easy versus whole parties going to Blackrock Depths. Oh, right, yes. Yeah. Scholar's your most missed dungeon. The atmosphere and going there for the Paladin quest and even just riding there felt epic. Yes, I love Scholarmans. Do I see a big interest in Classic from my viewers or mediocre? I don't know, honestly. Who knows? I mean, we end up talking about it, don't we? You know, it's not like everyone rolls their eyes whenever I bring the subject up or when someone else does. So there might be some interest. I might stream the odd little bit, but don't expect me to level up at any sort of rates because you know, I'll potter. Vanilla was different. Good Molten Core gear lasted late to Nax. It shouldn't have done, really. Mana Igniting Cord. Oh, you're talking about gnome items. I don't care about gnome stuff. Talisman of Ephemeral Power. I remember that. Choker of the Fire Lord. Which a gnome stole off me. Cheeky bastard. For the second time in my WoW history, right, we're rolling on. This was a roll because it was a pug. And we're rolling on, and that was one of the pieces of loot we rolled. I rolled a 95. It was the highest roll there. And then they're just about to finish it. And some gnome sweeps in with a 97. Absolutely disgraceful. What were they going to do with it? Choker of the Fire Lord. I would have choked them with the Fire Lord. What do I think of Heroic Dungeons now with Gears 370 gear? I guess I'll do some Heroic Dungeons to try and get myself some decent trinkets. I mean, that's what they did in Legion, though. They keep stepping it up, obviously. You know, it's all about thinking casuals want power gear. I don't know what that's about, but there it is. There it is. You believe if Blizzard lean towards cosmetic, they'll do well? Of course they will. We know. It's not even a supposition. We can see it in other games. There are people who play Lord of the Rings online, Black Desert online, Elder Scrolls Online, specifically for cosmetic stuff. They don't really play it. They do the cosmetic side of it entirely. I mean, Lord of the Rings Online, you know, has quite an RP type community. They do loads more like community events than is done in World of Warcraft, even on RP realms. You know, and it doesn't involve finding an inn and taking everyone's clothes off. Molten Core raid prepping never again. It wasn't that bad. I love how you still remember a gnome outrolling me. I remember the specific numbers of the gnome outrolling me. I'll tell you the second one. This was in Burning Crusade. Again, a pug. Advanced Burning Crusade, of course. In Tempest Keep. We get there. Oh, no, it wasn't a pug. No, it was a guild group. But because it was very old content, we just decided to roll on the mount rather than award it. That's right. It was just for the mount. But I remember the rolls. I rolled a 99. Mine. Because at the time, right, I'm not that bothered about it now. But at the time, you've got to remember, it was a fast mount. It was a 310 speed mount. And I think it might have been one of the only ways to get it. Get a mount that fast. Because your other mounts were only 280 speed. And I rolled a 99. And again, it's not just that a gnome rolled 100. It's that they had the cheek to do it just when I was allowed to think everyone's finished rolling. They paused. They waited. They're just evil, vindictive creatures. Gnome salt. Well, that's a good idea. I wonder if you pour a load of gnome on them, salt on them, do you think they'd dry out, gnomes? Would it draw all the water out of them? Might try that. Guild Wars 2 is called Fashion Wars. But that's what people want to do. Yes, there are competitive people. And what they want are the accolades, not the gear either. But they know they need the gear to do that. Yeah. I'm not saying you have no power gear. Of course you do. It's an integral part of a role-playing game. But the cosmetic side of it is where the fun is. It took you 2 weeks each to completely gear 2 different alts up to 385. Can I give you some teacher motivation to study for your exams? Yeah, get some bloody work done. If you're going to revise for exams, however, you want the smell of rosemary around you. Get some rosemary essential oils and just have it on a little burner by you. It is scientifically proven to improve your memory. If you have the scent of rosemary, if you can't do that, then you just get a sprig of rosemary and stick it under your router, and that will help. And the other thing I say to my students, basically get a ruler and a pencil and draw, let's say, draw a line 21 centimetres in length. And then imagine that every 3 millimetres is a year of your life. And you can map on that, you can map on your life up to now, which is a little block, then the amount of time you're spending doing this course right now, which will be tiny, and then the rest of your life. And what you're doing now affects the rest of your life. So it's really not a long time to have to do some bloody work. Anyway, why not scent of blood like your teachers? Scent of blood, what's that supposed to do? No, rosemary. Oh, what's that? What? Scent of blood? Are they threatening to punch you in the nose or something? But yes, you get rosemary. It's scientifically proven. I mean, they knew about it thousands of years ago, but obviously they thought lots of things thousands of years ago. We didn't know which were right. So we now do surveys. We go, it can result in a 7% increase in grades or scores on tests. Blizzard's biggest problem is they put accessibility above game design, thinking they'll get more players, but giving them gear instead, it makes the game not as fun. I don't know whether it was a conscious decision. I just think they're not very good at... I don't want to say not very good at game design, because again, I'm not labelling all developers with this. I'm specifically labelling the ones who are supposed to be leading them. I don't think they're very good at leading and coordinating teams, which means that they obviously feel that gameplay is a weakness to them. So they try and emphasize other aspects because they don't want to face up to it. But you have to face up to these things or nothing ever changes. You know. And I understand the motivation to not want to face up to something that's a weakness, especially when you haven't got any great ideas about how to fix it. That's understandable. But it's not very helpful. It's certainly not very professional. In BDO, they made lots of money off cosmetic clothes. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the career, I did think that went a bit too far. I thought they charged a bit too much for some stuff. I'm not saying it should model itself on Black Desert Online for that. I don't mind some stuff on an online store, purely cosmetic wise. But if you look at Lord of the Rings Online, some of it's on the online store. Some of it you get by just doing the game. Some of it comes with seasonal events, and then that's the only way to get them to do those seasonal events. So many ways to encourage people to play the game in a way that they don't feel obligated to, but they want to. Is it time for WoW to bring in a new lead dev from the outside the company? I don't know, because I don't really know exactly how it works at Blizzard. The thing is, the idea of bringing someone in from the outside, of course, has its obvious advantages. Excuse me. One of which is, yes, they've got a completely different perspective and fresh new approach. Yes. The problem is that they'd be coming into a really uncoordinated design team. I think the first thing an effective lead designer would have to do is coordinate that team. But that means telling people to work in a way that they're not used to. So when you imagine someone who has no respect because they haven't built any up yet, coming from outside and telling them they've got to do everything very different, that could cause friction. So it's not straightforward necessarily either. I mean, I would almost say they've got to do something, but I just think it's... I don't think WoW is going to get any better, if I put it that way. I'm not saying the Warcraft franchise with the next game can't start off with a bang. But I think World of Warcraft right now is not going to get any better. I'm not saying it's inevitably going to get worse, but I do believe the next expansion, just because of the fact this expansion is taking more development time than it should be doing, because they didn't release it ready, I don't believe they'll be allowed to have a longer lead into the next one. I believe this is already probably affecting development for the next expansion. They've already been told about budget cuts, so the next expansion is not even going to have as big a budget. So they're going to have to do the next expansion with a smaller budget, with exactly the same development time, and effectively with less, because they're having to deal with Battle for Azeroth. You know, I cannot see the next expansion being anything other than not as good as this one even. I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm 100% on that, but that's what I believe based on what I can see. So I do not believe that World of Warcraft is going to get better, and it could get worse. And it wouldn't take much. Because for me, right, here's the actual reality of the situation for me. We are probably, a year and a half away from another expansion, right? A year and a half away from a new expansion. If that new expansion does what I believe it does, if we kill off N'Zoth and we've basically finished the Warcraft story, obviously, yes, they're going to start a new one. But here's how it will work for me. If by the next expansion, I'm not impressed with what's on offer to play, and if, from my point of view, the story has a nice, tidy ending, and yeah, they might be moving into a different story, but if it's not a story that I'm going to find hugely compelling, now I might change my mind if it is a proper Undead Lich King story. I might stick around then. But let's say it wasn't, I could easily quit the game at that point. You know, I believe I will be playing this game until the end of this expansion. I do not know, and I'm not saying I think I'll quit. I'm not saying that. I just don't know. I'm not blindly saying that I will definitely be here the next expansion. If it isn't getting better, this expansion is the last one for me. I mean, it could. I can't say it can't. I just don't see how it can. Like, if you weigh up budget cuts, they're not going to be allowed more development time on it. They've surely, and I can't know this, but it's just a supposition, surely they are already behind, because to not only do the content they'd planned to for BFA, but to fix all the stuff they didn't plan to, surely that means pulling some developers off Revenge of the Potato People. And if they've done that, that means they're behind with Revenge of the Potato People. So when you factor those three things up, I do not see how it's possible to make the next one better unless they change their tune when it comes to, instead of getting You know, instead of persisting with a bad idea, you should drop it straight away. And if they don't change their tune on that, you know. For me, it depends on their storytelling since I'm a casual. See, that's what I'm finding, you see. The storytelling, at the moment, the story I want to find out about. And I don't want to find out about it by just watching YouTube videos. I want to play it. I want to experience it, as far as a casual will. But it's, you know, if there's a level below which you would stop playing the game, I'm not much above that level. They can't afford to make many more cock-ups for me. Because it's not like I've got nothing else to do. There was a time when I played WoW so seriously that I had no time for any other hobbies. You know, fitting it round my work was really ran me ragged. Now that's very different. Very different. I could completely quit anything to do with WoW, you know, this channel and the game, and it's not like I'd be twiddling my thumbs. You know, so it is competing for my time. And at the moment, it's only just managing to compete for a portion of my time. You feel bad for the serious players. The serious players are probably the least hard done by, even though a lot of the systems in the game are shit for them. You know, just like I said in Legion, having to farm artifact power and stuff like that, you shouldn't have to do that as a raider. That being said, at least they have enough reasons to play it as long as they've got the time to do that. But anyway, you don't think we'll end the Olgod threat? You think it'll get worse? Well, we shall see. I am fairly convinced. But anyway, we will see, won't we? It won't be long now. Another year and we'll know. Pretend gearing up is like bodybuilding in the real world. Well, Titan forging and catch-up mechanics like steroids isn't fun being... Yeah, but you could choose to take steroids or not. You can't choose to, with Titan forging. You either get it or you don't. But I take your point about, you know, if everyone's got it, then what's the point? But, you know, it's not a choice. I mean, that's what people's beef with it is. You can't plan. You can't plan your gearing up. You know, when people ask for a biz list, you can't realistically give them one, even though some guilds still do, because, you know, there isn't one. You know, what gear I would want in each slot, if they're all the same item level, then yes, there is one. But what if one Titan forges, all of a sudden, that's my biz, even if it's the least of the possible choices. So... Oh, hang on. What's this? Exorcist suddenly started tweeting. Exorcists are happy to announce that they will be streaming this raid progression. Voice will be muted, no alien language, though you may ask your questions to our streamers about anything during breaks in English too. Spread the word. So Exorcists are going to stream, just not their voices. So they're still going to shout in Russian and no one will know. So, that's going to be a thing now. So Method have started something. Going to be able to watch people live stream. I wonder if Exorcists are going to bounce back this one as well. They didn't have a very encouraging one last time. You loved loot before Titan Forging. You was a sucker for items. Now it seems a bit pointless. I mean, it always seemed pointless to me because my focus was always on the raid. And see, in vanilla it was a bit of a different thing. Because the gear, if you got a really good upgrade of gear, that could easily be months before you would upgrade it again. Now, you know it's not. You know it's not. I mean, Titan 4 just made it worse. I agree. But just in general, I know that come 2 weeks into the next tier, I'm going to be wanting to replace all of it. Sockets add weight to an item. Well, it depends on the individual class and spec as to how much that secondary stack can be worth to you. Obviously, sockets, of course, add, which also makes item level a bit of a nonsense. Not as bad as in Legion. In Legion, it was a complete shambles. It's not as bad in BFA, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously sockets are an obvious thing that mess it up. Like with the Corgi goggles, there should be something similar for Gnomes. There is something similar for Gnomes. Oh, so all gnomes were turned to something else. Okay. There are goggles which I tried to demonstrate live, and unfortunately realised it's not a thing on Horde, and I only have those glasses on, excuse me, a Horde character. But yeah, there are glasses that turn everyone into gnomes. Gnomes in lingerie as well, which is even more disturbing, or at least underwear. You'd like to see the developers talk to influencers more, such as appearing on Allcraft. The thing is, though, my issue, when I watch interviews, they very rarely get properly interviewed. Because they do interviews at things like BlizzCon. People get to interview them. But they don't ask. The problem is they have a list of questions, and all they do is they ask the question, Blizzard give their response, which is, if they don't want to answer it, is a non-answer. And then what they do, instead of querying what they've just said and asking further details about it, they go straight to the second question. That's not journalism. You know. And I know when I criticise them, everyone just says, well, why don't you go there and do that then? I'm not flying to the other side of the world to make a point. Apart from anything else, I can't. BlizzCon is always, you know, impossible for me because I have teaching. But anyway, if Ian wants to do an interview with me, he is very welcome. And in fact, I will even do a deal with him. I'll record the interview, non-live. I won't do it live. Record it all. I'll edit it. And before I put it up, I would even let him okay anything. If there's anything he wants taken out, I will even let him do that. Because it would still be better than nothing at all. The other thing is, with some interviewers, not all, some interviewers don't really fully understand what they're talking about if they start talking about gameplay things. I am not a proper expert on it. You know, the top theory crafters are the ones who really should interview about those things. But, you know, I absolutely. He would never agree to be interviewed by me. You know that because you've got to bear in mind, he's such a control freak, he doesn't even allow his developers to properly talk to us on forums anymore. There is zero way. It is way too generous, but I reckon that's the only way he would do it. He would never do it live where I actually get to ask him questions. No way in hell. And I wouldn't be rude. And I wouldn't be after tripping him up. I would just be after answers to questions. And if he didn't answer it, I would query what he's saying. And if he says something that contradicts something else he's said, I would draw attention to it. And if I don't think he understands the question, I will rephrase the question. But I do not move on to question 2 until either question 1 has been answered or he has made it clear that he is not going to answer it. In which case, I would add a little, that's okay, you don't want to answer that question, that's fine, we'll move on. And he's not getting away with it. And that is exactly why he will not be interviewed by someone like me. You don't think Ian is setting the no-talk policies for the company? It doesn't matter what he's setting it for. He's setting it. He's done it. It's a thing. The motivation can only be born of paranoia anyway, so who knows? But, you know, it is a thing. He doesn't want them talking to the customers. I do happen to know that his main problem is not so much his own developers, but actually us. He thinks we twist what they say. That's what he thinks. He thinks we twist around stuff that we say. So it's us he doesn't trust, ultimately. Whether or not he trusts all his developers as well, I don't know. Maybe not. But he certainly doesn't trust us. So, yeah. He's likely to stick to being interviewed by people who know we'll just ask. Even if they ask good questions, we'll accept no answer whatsoever and move on to the next one without any pause. So it's unfortunate, but there you are. See, the thing is as well, where you do get information, because occasionally they are Developers are interviewed by proper journalists. You know, when you read the Forbes interviews, they're actually fairly good. You know, they still, because the most interesting things any developer has said at all during this whole experience has been in one of those interviews. It has never been in an influencer interview, and it has never been in one of their Q&As. All the most interesting things I have heard them say or read them say has been in a Forbes interview. You don't like live interviews because it seems rushed. I mean, it'd be up to him if he wants to. I mean, what time is it now in California land? Where are we? Is it about lunchtime? Must be about lunchtime. He'd be free at this time. If anyone wants to poke him and say, would he like to be a guest on this show? He is more than welcome to be a guest on this show. We'll all ask him questions. He can spend 2 hours doing it, and then he doesn't have to bother with his crap with Josh Allen, you know. Even though I haven't really got much use out of these yet. So I actually hope he does still carry on doing those Q&As like he's doing this week, because I paid for those and I haven't really got much use out of them yet. It seems Blizzard is ever increasingly hostile to new ideas. Oh yeah, I agree with that actually. You know, I remember the first few expansions seeing, because when I started playing other MMOs, I started to see features in them that weren't in WoW, and I thought, well, these would be really great features for WoW. And without question and without exception, surely, slowly but surely sometimes, they would appear in World of Warcraft, but better. They would appear better than World of Warcraft. You know, they'd improve them. They've stopped doing that now. Whatever happened to Law? Well, he's still there. He still does them. Do you mean in terms of how he behaves or anything? I don't know. What do you mean by that? If they do a live interview, it needs to be planned ahead with a good time management. Yeah, I'll just tell them. We do this UK time 7 till 9. So from his point of view, that's what, 11 a.m. till 1 p.m? He can even eat his lunch while he's doing it. No problem. I ain't got any airs and graces. You know, easy. Piece of piss. Go and ask him. He doesn't answer me. So, yeah. But no, Josh Allen, he still does them. He's there. Looking all sweet and innocent. Not actually what he looks like in reality, but never mind. The artist was very generous with him. Oh, what's happened to that? But they won't do it anyway. It would be funny, though, to catch him at BlizzCon. But again, they just wouldn't answer. They'd do the politician answer. You know. I mean, he was a lawyer, wasn't he? I don't know what he was. I know he's been to law school. I don't actually know what he did as a profession. But shall we put it this way? He's got the education and the experience, presumably, of not answering questions. He might want to pull a Hillary and get the questions ahead of time. Oh, I've no issue with that. No. I actually think it's good. Listen, if you want to trip someone up in an interview, of course, don't tell them what you want to ask. Here's the thing. I'd have to give him the questions ahead of time. And do you know why? Because if I don't give him the questions ahead of time and he doesn't want to answer a question, he could always just say, actually, I'd need to check with my team on that. Because no one expects the lead developer, he's the game director even, to know everything. Of course not. He's supposed to overview everything, but not know everything. No. I'd absolutely give him the questions in advance. Then there's no excuse. He's had time. I'll give him 2 weeks in advance. No problem at all. I'd almost insist on it. And you should. If you genuinely want answers to questions, you absolutely have got no justification for hiding questions. Hiding questions is something you do when you want to catch someone out. I don't want to catch someone out. I just want answers. Seems the Blizz team was incredibly hostile to Asmongold just appearing at BlizzCon. Really? So it just shows you what they think of the community. Were they? I didn't hear about that. What happened? You have to tell me now. They weren't the year before. because they had good news for him. The year before, they were telling him, oh, by the way, classic WoW. Before they even officially announced it. Why were they hostile to Asmongold? I missed that then. He used all kinds of stuff on Tank Spot, etc. Now there's an occasional stream on Twitch and that's it. Oh yeah, but obviously he always had to give that up when he joined World of Warcraft. I'm surprised he's even allowed to stream as himself. Obviously he is, but I'm very surprised. 2 weeks, yeah, of course. You've got to give them plenty of time to research the stuff. You've got to be... Otherwise, like literally, he could just turn around and say, well, you know, I'd need to check on that. It's out the blue. You're asking me a question out the blue. I can't be expected to know everything, which is absolutely valid. They asked him to leave. Did they? Are they allowed to ask you to leave? Well, I don't think he's quit WoW now. Wasn't he streaming the other day? I mean, if you've got a security issue, you can obviously ask someone to leave. Like, if you think someone's bothering other people. What was he doing then? Does anyone know what he was actually doing? Or do we only have his side of it for this? Is there like an independent witness to this? Disrespectful, he's dedicated a large part of his life to the game. He has. And I'm not going to take Blizzard's side on this because I don't believe Asmongold would do anything out of order at BlizzCon, I'm going to say. But you've got to think about it. In the year preceding that BlizzCon, he became like the king of WoW, didn't he, really? He just exploded in terms of popularity. And it's possible that having all those people hanging on your every word inflates his ego to the point where he thinks Blizzard should listen to him. I don't think anyone should ever feel that. Like, I have things that I think Blizzard would improve the game by listening to me. But I don't ever think that Blizzard should listen to me, as in they'd be absolutely mad not to. And maybe he did, I don't know. And maybe because of it he got like cocky and took the piss. I don't know. I don't believe he would have done, but I don't know. So he didn't have a media pass or something like that. So was he just in the wrong area then? But I also don't know why he wouldn't be given a media pass. I mean, if you're going to give it to any player of the game, you know, he is the most well-known. So it would be mad not to, I would have thought. It was a stranger who released the story and he had to back it up. You thought they didn't invite Asmongold? Well, I don't. This is the first time hearing of it. I have no idea. They think that Asmongold is toxic masculinity. Well, so Sylvanas. They haven't kicked her out of WoW yet. I mean, he probably is, to be fair. Do I think we'll get the Tinker class? No! No! Why do people keep talking about this? No! A Tinker class is a utility class. Blizzard have removed utility. We used to have utility classes. Paladins used to be utility classes. Amazing utility classes. They've stripped it all away. They're hardly going to bring another one in. They've already got perfectly good utility classes if they gave us our bloody utility back. Hi, Casey. Glad to be able to finally catch a live stream. What, while I'm in the middle of a rant? Someone mentioned, it's not quite mentioning gnomes, but be honest, who here, when someone talks about a Tinker class, doesn't think of a gnome as well? That's another reason. You're just encouraging it. You think people ask about Tinkers just to get this reaction from you? Taliesin and Everton made a video explaining what I know, but they always do things like that. They do things that are like what ifs. It's not because it's likely. You're going to roll a gnome Tinker. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Everyone, when you think of a Tinker class, you instantly think of gnomes. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's only toxic behaviour. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter, does it? You know, whatever it is, I'm not going to say he's all sweetness and light. I know that an awful lot of people that follow him for that, I think you could describe it as toxic masculinity. Describe it how you like. He plays to it as well. I don't think he's genuinely like that, if I'm honest. I think he plays to it. Because I'm sure I perceived him ramping it up over the last few years. But anyway, whatever it is not untrue, but it's not necessarily a reason to kick someone out unless he's been a jackass to other people around him. It seems Blizzard doesn't want to hear negative feedback. Oh, no, they don't. No, I know that. They absolutely don't. Another reason why he won't be interviewed by me. Segregation is toxic in itself. I don't know. Not always. Sylvanas is a disgusting, rotting corpse. Who cares if she's female or male? Well, quite, exactly. You think people should drop emotions and research what is meant by toxic masculinity? There's just two words you just put together. If you try and accentuate alpha male behaviour in a way that's designed to put other people down, you can describe that as toxic masculinity. If there's a definition for it by some sociologist and that's different to that, fine. But, you know, those two words can generate that meaning, I think. Morning, Daniel. But it really doesn't matter. Whatever it is, I don't even know he behaved himself badly at BlizzCon. I didn't even know he'd been kicked out or not invited or anything before people mentioned it now. I've known nothing about it. But anyway, there we go. So we're back onto politics almost, aren't we now? Bloody politics. Bloody sociology. Baluna gets sponsored by Blizzard, so hard to take him seriously now. Well, I don't think that's a problem. He made a series for them, which was it was a perfectly sensible series to make. It was one I was supposed to do. I actually started doing one. And then that's when they brought in, because I was going to do a series of guides actually for new players. And then they changed everything because they brought in the level scaling. And I thought, oh, I'd better hold off on this. And then before I knew it, Blizzard had done it as well. And I'm sure he did a perfectly good job of it. So, you know, I think Blizzard should do more things like that. Should do more things like that. Yeah, that's right. Somehow it didn't make sense in my head. They should do things like that. You know, where they have guides. Because that was one thing Josh Allen Law did when he first joined the company. He created a series of beginner guides, didn't he, for people who level boosted. They were quite good. They were all right. The idea of having beginner guides and stuff like that by Blizzard, I think it's amazing. Of course they should do it. They should do class guides, and then we wouldn't need to bother with them. Just let them do them. But anyway. I don't care what they're going to call these things. All I care about with words and terms is that they are understood. And if they're not understood, they should call it something else. The only people who are allowed to use words that no one else understands are scientists. What's wrong with profit margin? Whose profit margin? Are we talking about what it means or what it is? Blizzard pays someone that makes quality YouTube videos for a living to make a video. Yeah, I mean, exactly. It was exactly the thing to do. They can't get if they can't get their own staff to do it because time pressures and everything, get someone else to do it. Absolutely. He might not have even needed paying for it. You know, just having it on Battle.net would have been reward enough potentially. I'm not saying he wasn't paid for it. He may have been. Out of all the YouTubers who do WoW videos, who would I collaborate with? I don't know. Like, I did do something with Soul So Breezy a while ago. That was on his channel. I'd be quite happy to collaborate with anyone as long as I thought it was worthwhile. I'm not into collaborating for the sake, you know, like some people, it's a dirty word for me, collaboration with YouTube, because you're sort of told to do it so that you can get some of their viewers and they can get some of yours and it's all mutual and stuff like that. But I don't see it like that. I'm not interested in that. I'd only want to do it if it was something I thought was worthwhile, and I don't know who that would be. if I'm honest. It would depend what they wanted to talk about, and yeah, I don't know. There's no one I would go, oh no, I wouldn't do it with them, apart from obviously Belutla, because, you know, fuck him. Well, I don't watch a lot of Soul So Breeded stuff. I just happened to do one because I happened to be watching something of his where he was saying that no one wants to do like collaborations with him. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do a discussion with you for your channel. And it was all right. I quite enjoyed that. That was fine. We had because ideally what you want with anything like that where you've got another person is you want people who have a different perspective. And it was very different at the time because he's casual and I was a Mythic Raider at the time. And we've played different other MMOs as well. But at the same time, mutual respect. You don't want people who just shout you down, oh no, you're wrong, because that's just stupid. So Blizzard said they didn't like the politically incorrect things he was saying and didn't want to support him anyway. I understand that in today's very politically correct culture. I totally get that. That's not a reason not to invite him, though, is it? Didn't allow him to be in the Classic Ask Guys stream and asked him to leave. Right, okay. Unless he was specifically misbehaving in that area, I think that's out of line then. Because just because he has a reputation that you may not approve of, people can be different in different environments. As long as he's behaving himself appropriately for that environment, then yeah, I think that's off. Don't think there's any reason for that. I could do something with Az, like putting his dummy back in every few minutes. Don't be mean. He's found his niche now. He's happy. He's happy. He's talking about different games and games companies now. You believe he's promoting positivity. He does miss the issue, isn't it? Everyone can think anyone can miss the issue every now and then if you disagree with you, but, you know, it doesn't matter. Everyone does their own thing. He was excited as a child opening presents at Christmas. So was I. I was very pleasantly delighted with my stuff. You know, the new Hearthstone, I like that. I'm still using that. Obviously, I could go back to the Hallows End one, but no, I'm still doing my wintry one. To do with the fact he's Irish and I'm English? Not at all. I'm not English. I am British. Thank you very much. I never think of myself as English. The only time I ever have to think of myself as English, and it's not my fault, I wouldn't have it this way, is when I'm watching the rugby, the cricket, and in which case I can say England and Wales, or the football. Because I get no choice over that, because they won't have a British team. So, there you are. Far from it with being Irish. I always used to say, when I was a teenager in early 20s, I always used to describe my perfect woman as a red-headed Irish woman. That was my fantasy. Never happened. I was probably looking in the wrong place living in Grimsby, actually. That didn't help. Happy reset day. It's reset day tomorrow for me. It's not there yet. But we've got a few more minutes and then I can prepare for it. I suppose I should actually log on tomorrow. That would I can at least start getting some artifact knowledge. I might even celebrate by actually doing a world quest and get some artifact power. See what it does. You married a red-headed Irish woman. There you go then. Well done. Now, say you're American. Right, let's get this. This can be the last point. Let's get this sorted. When you say an Irish woman, do you mean an Irish woman, or do you mean what a lot of Americans would call them, someone whose parents or grandparents were Irish but hasn't themselves grown up in Ireland? Because I have to be very careful with Americans because they describe themselves as coming from all sorts of places that they've never even visited, let alone grown up with. So we have to be very careful. I'm very careful with Americans. They play fast and loose with nationalities. Although I've never understood why, I don't understand when you've got the most powerful country in the world that people are not just happy to say that they're American. The real deal, fine. That's okay then. Right, okay. So we will, on that note, we will call it a day, as someone's stolen my fantasy. Last one then. Go on, quickly. Blood is all that matters when it comes to Celtic culture. There's no, it's all mixed up. It's all mixed up. All mixed up now. Forget it. So I would give it to all gods and the dead. I thought that was goat blood. But anyway, we are finished now. So thanks for coming on, everyone. We're back again next week. Obviously, a few more videos in the meantime. And until next time, I will see you later.